Amplify Voices is not just the name of a podcast series, it's what we do as the broadcast vehicle for the Finger Lakes Youth Forum. The student contributors' stories and insights hold up a mirror for the region's communities to see how the past and current situations require fresh, inspired action to build a more equitable future. The experiences and stories you'll hear are as honest, compelling, and nuanced as each student, taking control of their own narrative while remaining open to every point of view. Daring to discuss difficult topics and listening to each other informs actions to build an inclusive way forward. Welcome to Amplify Voices. In Episode 1, starting here, we'll meet the Corning Painted Post High School student leaders who came together to create the Youth Forum and hear what inspired them to rise up and meet the needs of the moment. How making a safe space for themselves and their peers to talk about difficult topics and share experiences can become a change agent for the region. Now, let's listen to the contributor stories in Episode 1.
What we talked about in the first meeting, I feel like the biggest point was to make this a safe space to discuss issues that affect us, because there's already enough people who are going to try to delegitimize all of the stuff that we're talking about. So I think that just having a medium for people to talk about this stuff is going to be really good for a lot of people.
I think especially with quarantine, a lot of people have been living in isolation and just getting a lot less social contact. And I think that, even though this is on Zoom, it's still a place where you can dedicate time to talk to people about important topics. When I was in quarantine, I was kind of isolating myself and I was mad about all these issues, but it was difficult to find people who I knew I could talk to about. So I feel like the forum is a really good place kind of, and a safe space, like Jassy said, to let your worries out and kind of have people sympathize with you or be able to feel like you have the same issues as other people.
I would like to just accomplish having a safe space for this youth forum means is just having an area and a group of people who that you're able to come to and just talk about what you faced and all of the injustices that you faced and the discrimination and also things that you've seen, and just kind of knowing that those people who you're confiding in, that they're going to believe you and they're going to just try and empathize for you and just make sure that they are doing the best of their ability to just ensure that they are understanding and they're not trying to make you feel like a victim, but they just want to help to uplift you in the long run.
To combine what Olivia and Nick said, Olivia mentioned that we're all self-quarantining, so there is a lot less social interaction going on. It's nice to have dialogue instead of just these conversations with people on social media, because you can only get so far if you are trying to have these kinds of conversations. If you're texting or just making posts on social media, there's only so much information that you can put into a digestible post. I think that we agreed on it just because it's if you're having a debate, you want to define all of the rules and whatnot before you go into it, so that you'd avoid any kinds of conflict that would end up taking time out of it. So I think that if we all learn how we can be as helpful as we can be, there's going to be significantly less issues going forward with these discussions.
We'll be right back with more of Episode 1 after this. To join the forum panel discussions and to add your voice to the inclusive narrative, you can connect and follow us on Instagram at FL Youth Forum. The Youth Forum is sponsored by Dr. Millicent Ruffin, Director, Community Affairs Office, Corning Incorporated, and Katie McConville, Scholarships and Youth Philanthropy, Community Foundation of Elmira Corning, and the Finger Lakes Incorporated. Now back to more of Episode 1.
So I feel like with allyship, it was a very strong topic to start off with, like what Jassy said, especially because I feel like it helps us know that when we go to the forum, it's not a place to kind of argue, I guess. Like that's not really, like people will disagree on things. And I think that we made that as like a really good point in the first forum. That's like people all have their own opinions, but allyship is a really good way to be able to communicate your opinion in like a respectful way and not always try to like get your point across. It's more of like having a respectful conversation. And I feel like that's what the forum will really be based upon.
Yeah, I like that term, umbrella term, because I think that there definitely is more than one right way to be an ally, like we discussed in the forum. Well, I was talking to my mom about it after it ended, and I feel like it was a really good first step because, like I said before, we've outlined the steps that you can take, and now we can just build forward from that point.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And for the first two topics, I think what we wanted to do is just kind of have like a basis for two things that are really, really important to like us and in general. And then I think that after those two topics, I think like what we want to do or like how we're going to approach it is just kind of like hearing what happens in the forum. We just want to like see what people want to talk about. And then I think like after that, we're going to go and pick topics.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea because there's obviously a lot more that can be discussed beyond just us 6 people, well, 7 people counting Ben. We're not part of all the different communities that exist in our area. So I think that definitely broadening that scope is going to be really good to one, educate people, but also to let people be heard and raise their voices about all the stuff that's affecting them that we could be helping them with.
But also, I think that we did end up talking for like the majority, like us 4 ended up talking for the majority of the forum. And I think that, that was fine because, it was the first time everyone was like trying to break the ice and everything. But I would like to find more ways to engage people without it feeling like we were calling directly on them. So I think that's something we could improve on, but I'm not exactly sure how.
Because there's just so much happening in our world and in our community. And I feel like unless people actively talk about it and they're actively trying to educate one another and educate themselves, we're not really gonna fix anything and we're just gonna be stuck with those same problems. So I just want to accomplish that. I wanted to be a part of this because I feel like as the youth, we need to start taking advantage of the way that we are connected because this generation has more connection with each other than all previous generations combined. So I feel like if we're not taking advantage of how interconnected we are and how much we want to change things and just making sure that everyone has equal rights and equal access to healthcare and things like that, then what are we actually doing? Because all of these problems have been around for so long, and yeah, people have been talking about them for a while. Like, yes, things have changed, but that change, it's still not enough. So I feel like the first step to changing things that need to be changed is just sitting down with a couple of your peers and just having an open discussion about things. Because after you have that discussion, you can then go on and do more research by yourself and then start talking to more and more people and then donating, and just things like that.
Yes, going off what Nick said, and I think we touched on this a little in the forum too, it's this idea of like performative activism. And I guess, especially with like social media and stuff, I think a lot of people like are coming under flame, I guess, for being performative activists. So for me personally, I feel like the forum is a really good way because sometimes, I hear about these issues and I'm like, what can I do to help? And especially with this first topic of allyship, it's kind of like we were helping to present a lot of resources and ways to be able to help if, maybe you don't have money to donate, but you could do this, or like just these like little actions you can take to be always active in your activism is, I think, something really important that I would love to emphasize with more forums. And actually the forum is like a really good way to be active with your activism.
We haven't talked about it since it ended, but I think a really good suggestion that you brought up was the community input for what other discussions that we could have. A way we could do that is we could do it like the Shades of CPP, where we set up an Instagram account and then people can message that account with their suggestions for discussions or questions about upcoming discussions or anything like that. A good thing about that is that it can remain anonymous. So
yeah, that resonates a lot with me because I think we were talking about this. One of the challenges we were considering when we were talking about this being on Zoom is just like the whole process of, it's like a lot more awkward to kind of jump in when you have to like unmute yourself and talk like over Zoom versus like in person. But I honestly, like reflecting on the first forum, I think it went like the best that we could in that regard. Because just starting those conversations is something that I really want to continue doing as much as possible in my life. Yeah.
If you don't sit down and talk about something, yeah, you can talk about how much you want for things to change, but like, what are you actually doing to help change things?
So I think that having these dialogues is going to be really good to educate and to shine light on the issues in our community.
We'd like to thank our student leaders and listeners. This podcast is for everyone in the region. We hope you join the movement and make your voices heard. A safe space is what we all need to stand up and walk a new path, to grow in courage and reach out to others, and to speak for the voices that are still silent. I'm Sissy Sierro, your host for this series. Join us in January for episode 2, when we'll hear the Finger Lakes Youth Forum panel discussions on allyship and the 2020 elections.